All right, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling narcissism, more specifically how to spot it, especially in relationships.
Yeah, it's tricky, right?
It is. We're using chapter 2 from this book as our guide. Think of this deep dive as your toolkit for recognizing those red flags early on.
It really is like having a secret weapon. Once you understand these traits, you can start making better choices about who you let into your life.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't want that? So let's break it down. We hear narcissists all the time these days, but what does it actually mean? I mean, is it just someone who's a little self-centered, or is there more to it?
It's definitely more than just vanity. It's a whole pattern of behavior, often coming from a pretty fragile sense of self. Actually, did you know there are different types of narcissism?
Really? Different types? Like what are...
Well, you have your grandiose narcissist. That's usually who we picture.
Yeah.
Super confident, always wants attention, thinks they're better than everyone else. But then there's the vulnerable narcissist. They might seem more introverted, maybe a little sensitive even, but underneath, they still crave validation, and they're still prone to manipulating people.
So both types have that fragile core, they just express it differently.
Exactly. And one of the things that makes narcissists so dangerous is how they come across at first. I mean, initially.
Right. They can be so charming.
Exactly. Especially if you're looking for a partner, it's easy to get drawn in.
It's like they create this perfect first impression, almost too perfect.
Yeah. It's an illusion. And that's why it's crucial to understand those core traits so you can see past the surface and spot the red flags.
Okay, let's unpack those traits then. What are some of the biggest warning signs?
Well, it all starts with an exaggerated sense of self-importance. And it goes beyond just being confident. It's this deep-seated belief that they're superior, that they deserve special treatment all the time.
Oh, I've definitely met people like that. How would that play out in a relationship, though? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine you're dating someone who can't stop name dropping all these important people they barely know. Or they're constantly exaggerating their achievements. It's all about feeding their ego.
I get it. They need to look good, even if it means making you look bad.
Yeah. They might downplay your successes, just to make themselves seem better.
Yikes. Talk about a red flag. That would get old pretty fast.
Definitely. And it creates a real imbalance in the relationship. Which brings us to another big one. Lack of empathy.
Okay, so with that one, they just have a hard time understanding other people's feelings.
Right. But there's actually more to it. I mean, sometimes it's not even a conscious choice. For some narcissists, there was something that happened, early on in their life. Their emotional development got disrupted.
So they might not be choosing to be callous. It's like they don't have the capacity for empathy.
Exactly. But in a relationship, it can be really painful. Like imagine sharing something that's really upsetting you and your partner just brushes it off.
Like you're being too sensitive.
Exactly. Or even worse, they turn it around and make it about them and their problems.
Ooh, that would be infuriating. So if you're listening, think about your own relationships. Does your partner really listen? Or do they always minimize your feelings or turn the conversation back to themselves? If so, that's a huge red flag.
Definitely. And that lack of empathy goes hand in hand with this constant need for admiration. They don't just want compliments, they need them. They crave that validation like it's their lifeblood.
So it's not enough to feel good about themselves. They need everyone around them to agree.
Exactly. They might surround themselves with people who constantly praise them, even if those relationships are totally superficial. And they get upset if they don't get the recognition they think they deserve.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like it's less about genuine connection and more about feeding their ego.
Right. And that need for admiration often leads to a sense of entitlement. Narcissists often believe the rules don't apply to them. They think they deserve special treatment, privileges that others don't get.
I can see how that would create a real power imbalance.
Absolutely. I mean, they might expect you to drop everything for them, regardless of what's going on in your life.
So it's not a two-way street. It's their needs first, no matter what.
Pretty much. And this sense of entitlement can actually lead to exploiting others, using people to get what they want.
Okay, now we're getting into some pretty dark territory.
Yeah. It's not pretty, but it's important to understand. Because narcissists often see people as tools, things to be used for their own benefit.
So that charm we talked about, that initial attraction, it's not always real.
Unfortunately, no. It can be a way to manipulate you, to get what they want.
So they might be super attentive at first, but once they've gotten what they need, poof.
Exactly. And it's not just about using people. Narcissists have a whole arsenal of manipulative behaviors they use.
Like what?
Well, one of the most common is gaslighting.
Hold on, can we define that term first?
Oh, right. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation. It's where the narcissist tries to make you doubt your own sanity, to question your perception of reality.
So they might deny saying or doing things even if you have proof.
Exactly. They'll twist your words around, accuse you of being crazy or too sensitive. They might even make up whole scenarios to make you doubt your own memory.
That's terrifying. It sounds so disorienting, emotionally damaging.
It is, and that's just one tactic. We haven't even talked about blame shifting or their lack of accountability or the jealousy and possessiveness they can display.
Wow, this is a lot to unpack, and I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface. So before the break, things were getting pretty intense. We were talking about all the ways narcissists can manipulate people, but this isn't just about understanding them, it's about you and how their behavior can impact you.
Exactly. We need to talk about the consequences of actually being in a relationship with a narcissist.
Because this is serious stuff, right? It's not just about dealing with a difficult person. We're talking about potential damage, like long-term damage to your well-being.
Right. Being in a relationship with a narcissist can really erode your self-esteem, your sense of worth. It can even make you question your own judgment. You start to wonder, am I overreacting? Am I being too sensitive?
It's like that gaslighting we were talking about.
Yeah.
It can mess with your head, make you question reality.
It can. And over time, it can lead to some serious problems, anxiety, depression, even PTSD in some cases. This is emotional abuse. It's important to call it what it is.
Wow, this is heavy stuff. So what can you do if you're in this situation? How do you protect yourself?
First of all, if you're in danger, you need to reach out for help.
Yeah.
There are hotlines, support groups, therapists who specialize in this. You don't have to go through this alone.
Right. Safety first, always. But what about if you're not in immediate danger, but just feeling drained, unhappy, like the relationship is taking more than it's giving?
That's where boundaries come in. You need to communicate your needs clearly and hold firm even when it's hard.
I can imagine that's tough with a narcissist.
Oh, it can be a nightmare. They'll try to guilt you, manipulate you, maybe even get angry. But remember, boundaries aren't about controlling them. It's about taking care of yourself.
So how do you set boundaries, like practically speaking?
It starts with honesty and being direct. Tell them how their behavior is affecting you. Use specific examples. So instead of saying, you never listen to me, you might say, when you interrupt me, it makes me feel like my opinions don't matter.
That makes sense. Focus on how their actions make you feel, not on blaming them.
Right. But be ready for pushback. They might not like it. You have to stand your ground.
What if they just refuse to change, no matter what you do?
Well, then you have to do some soul searching. Ask yourself some tough questions. Is this relationship good for me? Am I willing to keep living like this? Sometimes walking away is the healthiest choice, even if it hurts.
So it comes down to self-worth, recognizing that you deserve better.
You got it. And this is where understanding narcissism becomes so powerful. Once you see it clearly, you can make better decisions.
It's like taking back control. You're not just playing their game anymore.
Exactly. No more confusion, no more self-doubt. You have the awareness to make choices that are good for you.
So this deep dive, it's not about labeling people. It's about giving you the tools to make those choices.
It's about understanding the dynamics so you can create healthier relationships with partners, family, friends, even coworkers.
Because this stuff doesn't just happen in romantic relationships, right?
Nope. You can find narcissistic behavior everywhere. The key is recognizing the signs and knowing you have options.
This has been so eye-opening, and I feel like we're just getting started. Wow, we've really gone deep, haven't we? From that initial charm to the manipulation tactics. It's been a lot.
It has. But even though it can be unsettling, I think learning about this stuff is powerful. You know, like knowledge is power, right?
Totally. It's like we've been given this new way of looking at relationships. We can see things more clearly, make better decisions. But before we wrap up, let's go over the key takeaways one more time.
Sure. What are you thinking?
Well, I think the biggest thing is remembering that narcissists, they're really good at hiding who they really are, especially at first.
Yeah, that's right. That idealized version of themselves, it's hard to see past that.
And it's important to recognize those red flags, you know, like an inflated ego, lack of empathy, constantly needing admiration, exploiting people to get what they want.
And if you're in a relationship with someone like that, it can really take a toll on you.
For sure. You might start doubting yourself, feeling anxious, maybe even depressed, like you're always walking on eggshells.
So what can you do if you see these traits in someone you're close to?
Well, we talked about boundaries, right? Being clear about your needs and sticking to them, even when it's hard.
And you have to remember, you deserve to be in relationships where there's respect, empathy, genuine care. If you're not getting that, it might be time to rethink things.
Yeah. Sometimes walking away is the best thing you can do for yourself, even if it's tough.
I agree. And if you're struggling with any of this, please remember you don't have to do it alone. There's help out there.
Right. Therapists, support groups, lots of resources.
One last thing I want to mention. We've been focusing on romantic relationships. But these narcissistic traits, they can show up anywhere. With family, friends, coworkers.
That's a good point. So pay attention to the relationships in your life. Notice how people make you feel. Are they lifting you up or driving you down?
Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And remember, you have the power to choose who you let into your life and how you let them treat you.
Well said. So to sum it all up, embrace your power, put your well-being first, and never settle for less than you deserve.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, keep those minds curious and those hearts open.